The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, The Work Before Us, lecture delivered by Swami Vivekananda at the Triplicane Literary Society Madras, Part 3. So you see, our message has gone out to the world many a time, but slowly, silently and unperceived. It is on a par with everything in India. The one characteristic of Indian thought is its silence, its calmness. At the same time, the tremendous power that is behind it is never expressed by violence. It is always a silent mesmerism of Indian thought. If a foreigner takes up our literature to study, at first it is disgusting for them. There is not the same stir, perhaps the same amount of go that rouses him instantly. Compare the tragedies of Europe with our tragedies. The one is full of action that rouses you for the moment, but when it is over, there comes the reaction, and everything is gone, washed off as it was from your brains. Indian tragedies are like the mesmerist power, quiet, silent, but as you go on studying them, they fascinate you. You cannot move, you are bound. And whoever has dared to touch our literature has felt the bondage and is there bound forever. Like the gentle dew that falls unseen and unheard, and yet brings into blossom the fairest of roses, has been the contribution of India to the thought of the world. Silent, unperceived, yet omnipotent in its effect, it has revolutionized the thought of the world, yet nobody knows when it did so. It was once remarked to me how difficult it is to ascertain the name of any writer in India, to which I replied, that is the Indian idea. Indian writers are not like modern writers who steal 90% of their ideas from other authors, while only 10% is their own. And they care to write a preface in which they say, for these ideas I am responsible. Those great masterminds producing momentous results in the hearts of mankind were content to write their books even without putting their names, and to die quietly, leaving the books to posterity. Who knows the writers of our philosophy? Who knows the writers of our Puranas? They all pass under the generic name of Vaisya and Kapila and so on. They have been the true children of Sri Krishna. They have been the true followers of the Gita. They practically carried out the great mandate, to work you have the right, but not to the fruits thereof. Thus India is working upon the world, but one condition is necessary. Thoughts like merchandise can only run through channels made by somebody. Roads have to be made before even thought can travel from one place to another. And whenever in the history of the world a great conquering nation has risen, linking the different parts of the world together, then has poured through these channels the thought of India, and thus entered into the veins of every race. Before even the Buddhists were born, there are evidences accumulating every day that Indian thought penetrated the world. Before Buddhism, Vedanta had penetrated into China, into Persia, and the islands of the Eastern Archipelago. Again, when the mighty mind of the Greek had linked the different parts of the Eastern world together, there came Indian thought. And Christianity, with all its boasted civilization, is but a collection of the little bits of Indian thought. Ours is the religion of which Buddhism, with all its greatness, is but a rebel child, and of which Christianity is a very patchy imitation. One of these cycles has again arrived. There is the tremendous power of England, which has linked the different parts of the world together. English roads no more are content like Roman roads to run over lands, but they have also ploughed the deep in all directions. From ocean to ocean run the roads of England. Every part of the world has been linked to every other part, and electricity plays the most marvelous part as the new messenger. Under these circumstances, we find again India reviving and getting ready to give her own quota to the progress and civilization of the world. And that I have been forced, as it were, by nature to go over and preach to America and England is the result. Every one of us ought to have seen that the time has arrived. Everything looks propitious. And Indian thought, philosophical and spiritual, rose once more to go over and conquer the world. The problem before us, therefore, is assuming larger proportions every day. It is not only that we must revive our own country. That is a small matter. I am an imaginative man, and my idea is the conquest of the whole world by the Hindu race.